All right, we've got TSN's Dave Naylor with us. Unfortunately, now it's cut to 4 minutes. But, David, welcome to the show. Good to see you. Happy summertime, my man. So, is Dustin Crum the best story in the CFL now?
Boy, he's got a rival down the highway in Chad Kelly, and I was thinking about that this morning, that these historically are not exactly quarterback-generating organizations. And by that, I mean usually when Ottawa or Toronto has a good quarterback, it's because they traded for him or signed him in free agency. They don't exactly sign and develop talent. In fact, do the list of the Toronto Argonauts' history of quarterbacks that have started for them. Even McLeod Bethel-Thompson was in Winnipeg before he was in Toronto, so technically it's not his only team. Seeing what Chad Kelly has done this year, and I know he's not a raw rookie, but he played, half a quarter in the Grey Cup and had one meaningless start in Week 21 last year. And then Dustin Crum, who was, on that roster for the second half of the season last year. And I find it amazing when you think of all of the money that was spent and all of the things Ottawa's tried at quarterback, from the Matt Nichols and Dom Davis to Duck Hodges to, I could go on and on and on. And then, the guy walks off the practice roster from fourth string and saves the season. Look, put that in some context. NFL teams don't keep four quarterbacks. On some teams, he's not even there. He's gone because the three guys ahead of him. So good thing Ottawa was one of those that chose to keep four. And yeah, I kind of sympathize or agree with the sentiment on the panel last night on TSN, where they were saying, look, you never want to say a guy's legit after 2 games, but this guy sure looks legit.
What does it say? Well, yeah, so we got a choice of great stories. Isn't that nice? Because last year there was one, Nathan Rourke, and he's gone. So I guess it takes a while. It takes a while for these stories to develop. But what does it say in Ottawa? Is it Bob Dice? Is it Dustin Crum? Is it a combo of the two? It's a great story. I just wonder who should get the credit. Sean Burke.
Sean Burke should get a lot of the credit as well. I mean, when we're talking about players who are signed by the team, we put a check mark next to the GM, and sometimes it's the assistant GM or the player personnel guy or a scout. Who ultimately, for better or worse, every player signed falls on the GM's resume. And look, I think there's been a. I was in Ottawa 2 weeks ago, right before the first Crum start, and right before the Mazzoli start, I was there. And I spent some time with Sean Burke, and one of the things I really came away with was just a sense of calm. Like, Sean is not an overreactive individual, and I think in the kind of environment that Ottawa was swimming, here we go, another quarterback gone, whoop, another season where we're starting off with and whatever, going to be chasing the division all year. You could see all that coming ahead, but I think there was just a sense of calmness, and I think Bob Dice shares that as well. And Bob Dice is the interesting backstory between Sean Burke and Bob Dice is that Sean Burke never knew Bob. This is a small league. Everybody knows everybody. But Bob.
And the power just went out at the Naylor house. Here's what we're going to do. Are you going to get him back, Clark, or should we rush to a break and then we can. Oh, you got a call. Okay. Do you remember where you were? Go ahead. Go ahead.
I was just talking about how Sean Burke and Bob Dice they didn't know each other. I mean, it's a small league. Most people know everyone, but a lot of times when he makes his first hire, they know who they were going to hire from the minute they got the GM job, right? They've got a short list in their head of, if I ever become a GM or once I become a GM, this is the guy I'm going to hire. Sean Burke didn't do that. He kept a very open mind once he became the GM, and he ended up hiring a guy he didn't know before he took the job in Ottawa, a guy who had the association with the losing staff, and also, had an association with the winning staff that preceded that. But I thought it was a gutsy hire, and I think it's obviously working out. And look, they've had some good fortune, right? They won 2 games in overtime. They could have lost those 2, but my goodness, go through the last 3 years of Ottawa football, back a pretty good pile of games they could have won on 1 or 2 plays. So eventually it bounces the other way. But here's the exciting thing for me about Crum in Ottawa. He gets better as the game goes on. He's figuring out the defense. They aren't figuring out him. And the more sort of tense or dramatic the situation becomes, and the more he kind of relies on his instincts, the better he is. That, to me, is very exciting for his future in the Canadian Football League, because we all know the best quarterbacks in this league aren't guys that just follow a script. They're guys that have an instinctive element to their game, and sometimes a big one. And I think we've already seen that in Dustin Crum. And like after the first start, you're like, okay, you can't continue running that much and be successful. Teams are going to adjust. What happens when they adjust? Well, we saw what Calgary did last night. They adjusted. By the middle of the second quarter, or even earlier, Cam Judge is spying him on every. He was what 64 yards at the half and over of 70 and a half. So they completely took away the run, and he still was able to engineer, the game-winning, what proved to be the critical drive in the fourth quarter that got them into overtime, and then getting the job done in overtime. And I think, what is he, 4 for 4 on 2-point converts in the last two games? So I mean, that's
he can throw, yeah.
2-point convert, and those are two, not way through the first quarter. Those are 2-point converts at the end of the game in overtime. So this guy is clutch.
We're way over time. We got like 90 seconds. But the viewers want to know who you think. Hot potato. Which coach is the most on the hot seat right now?
Well, Chris Jones is on the hot seat because he's 0-7, but I don't think the economics allow him to fire him. So it's kind of a weird situation. I mean, you look at that, say 9 teams. There's only one of them that doesn't win a couple games, and that's the guy that's 0-7, and he's in his second year, and they had a bad year last year. Well, obviously it's Chris Jones, but if what Victor Cui said, and I have no reason to doubt it, 2.5 weeks ago or so, where he said, no, he's got a 4-year deal and there are implications to our cap if we fire him. I don't think Chris Jones is senior. And I know there's another coach in the league, who's in any sort of imminent danger. I know it's been a disappointing year in Hamilton, but I think Orlando Steinauer is very secure. And I think, like a lot of coaches, when you're starting and backup quarterbacks are on the IR, you don't look like a very good coach. So no, I don't have anybody in the pool, to get fired.
All right. I appreciate the insight. Thanks, Dave. Keep up the great work.